You know, ladies and gentlemen, this has been one of the best years in gaming by far, at least in recent memory. Don't let anybody tell you that this has been a horrible year for gaming, because quite frankly, that's not true. There's been a lot of video games that have been exceptional this year, and we're going to speak about one of them in this video today, and that is none other than Expedition 33. Now, the reason why I am talking about Expedition 33 is because there is an interview that has just recently come out with the main studio head over at that particular video game, and it is an interesting conversation that I want to go over, which is basically his response to what is going to happen to the studio now that you guys have found so much success. Now, as you guys may or may not be aware, Expedition 33 was made by some former Ubisoft developers that essentially got bored over at Ubisoft by being completely unchallenged, making the same slop that they love to make every single year, and they decided to make their own studio and chase their passion and make a certain video game called Expedition 33. And in this tweet from Pirate Nation, it says, "Clear Obscure Expedition 33 director doesn't think sales and awards success should change the studio. What we want to do is exactly what we wanted to do when we started. We don't want to grow too much as a company." And I thought this is a great topic of conversation that we can have today in this video. Expedition 33 was a fantastic video game that exploded all throughout the internet when it released, and I remember watching the trailer for the first time when it was first revealed and saying to myself, and on stream by the way, that this is something really special. And today we get to talk about how this game ended up actually being one of the most special video games to release in recent memory, and how whether or not this success is going to go to the heads of the studio behind Clear Obscure Expedition 33. So hit that like button, subscribe button, all that beautiful YouTube algorithm nonsense. Let's get into the video talking about Clear Obscure Expedition 33. So this particular video game, when the trailer first released, I remember not many people were talking about it. Initially, I don't want to say it went under the radar, because I don't think that's true, but ultimately, a lot of people were talking about it just kind of in passing. But I remember looking at this trailer and telling myself, there is something special here. I really can't put my finger on it. I can't quite explain myself at the current moment in time, but I just know by looking at what it was in the trailer, and looking at the combat, and looking at the graphics, and looking at the world and the overall story, and the idea behind the paintress counting down from 33 all the way down to 0, although she obviously counted down from a much higher number, but you get what I'm saying. Counting down from 33 to 0, and everybody losing their life every single year she counts down for that particular year number. I mean, the concept was very interesting to me. It kind of blew my mind a little bit, and I just couldn't wait to dive into the game. Fast forward a couple of trailers later and an eventual release for the video game, I could not put this game down. When I tell you, I was doing multiple Grivcasts over on my gaming channel, Hypnotic Gaming Live, where I was streaming this game 2 to 3 times a day until I eventually beat it. And ultimately, when I beat it, I was blown away. I really was. The story is fantastic. The world building is fantastic. The overall gameplay is fantastic, and it really truly proved the Western RPG industry wrong. And not even just the Western RPG industry, because there are some Japanese studios like Square Enix, for example, that truly believed that turn-based was dead. Nobody wanted a turn-based video game. Everybody wants action combat, and they truly believed that. And then Expedition 33 came out and completely knocked that bullshit right out the water, and I love them for it. I really do, because we were all telling them that that is not true, and there was no way to get a, I guess, culmination of a number behind that. There was no way to really show that until Expedition 33 released, and when it did gangbusters numbers. Now, one of the best things that I've ever heard somebody say about Expedition 33 is that this particular video game has turn-based combat, and I don't like turn-based combat. Whenever I hear someone say that and they're loving this game, it puts a smile on my face, because truly, people have a certain perception around turn-based combat, and it's fine. Listen, if you don't like turn-based, that's okay. Just like some people don't like action, that's okay too. I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm saying is there is a lot of people out there that absolutely love turn-based combat, and we have been ignored by major studios because they viewed it as too much of a risk. Now, the truth is, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 had more than just supposed turn-based combat. It had action-oriented elements within the turn-based combat that made it interesting for people that don't normally play those kind of games. The fact that you had the parry system, the dodge system, the jump system, everything that came and made it intuitive to people who love action games, and then they had the turn-based element involved in it, where you have strategy. You have to think about what you were going to do next. All of this combined itself into a fantastic overall combat system that everybody enjoyed, regardless of their playing background and whatever previous video games that they may or may not have played. Now, going back to Pirate Nation's tweet, because this is ultimately what the conversation is going to be about today, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 director doesn't think sales and award success should change the studio. Now, this is coming from an interview with this particular director, and I have a transcript of that interview from Games Radar that we're going to go over. So Games Radar's headline says the following: Clair Obscur Expedition 33 director doesn't think sales and award success should change the studio. What we want to do is exactly what we wanted to do when we started. We don't want to grow too much as a company. Now, the overall concept about this, I want to believe him. I really do. And trust me, right now, they absolutely have the benefit of the doubt. But most companies, you have to hold at an arm's length, because even if they do good before, doesn't mean they're going to do good again. I've always said that I prefer when teams remain as small as possible and as tight-knit as possible, because I feel like that's when the best work is done. When you have teams that are just way too big, where you can't even communicate with your coworkers because you're part of a team of like 500 to 1,000. I mean, look at Ubisoft. Ubisoft had almost 3,000 people working on Assassin's Creed Shadows. Their credit sequence was 2 hours long in order to get through the entire credits of everybody that worked on Assassin's Creed Shadows, whereas Expedition 33 has a little over 30 employees. So you can clearly get down to a more personal working level and understand what your fellow, employee might be thinking, or see, I guess brainstorm a lot easier. I feel like there's a lot more that can be done with a smaller team. So naturally, the fear starts to kick in, right? Naturally, you start asking the question, okay, well, if there's a little over 30 employees, with the success of Expedition 33 selling a little bit over 5 million copies as of October of this year, are they going to grow? Are they going to expand? Are they going to try to hire more people? Are they going to go to a team of 100? Are they going to go to a team of 200? Are they going to eventually become a AAA studio because they made so much money and were so successful off of Expedition 33? Well, apparently, I am very happy to say that that doesn't seem to be the case. So let's go over this entire article and see exactly what's happening here. So the first couple of paragraphs says, I feel like dramatic changes don't necessarily mean that we have to change dramatically as human beings. Creative director Broach told Games Radar after the game took home almost every trophy that it was nominated for at the Golden Joystick Awards of 2025. What we want to do is exactly what we wanted to do when we started the game. It's just to make games that are really honest and true, and write stories that move people and really connect people emotionally. And that's what we are going to keep doing moving forward. Now, I want you guys to keep in mind, if you haven't played Expedition 33, there is going to be no spoilers in this video, so don't worry about that. But here's what I will tell you. That opening sequence, when I first experienced it, I messaged everybody that I knew that either planned to play Expedition 33 or was on the fence of playing Expedition 33. I messaged everybody and I said, I'm telling you right now, if you play this game and you go through the opener, you are going to be hooked all the way to the end. And lo and behold, everybody that I ever spoke to that played through the opener, for the most part, has gotten hooked all the way to the end. They could not put the controller down. It is that kind of a game. It is that kind of a story, and it is that damn good. And it says that Sandfall Interactive has a little over 30 full-time employees and used dozens more outsourced workers to finish Clair Obscur, so Broach also doesn't see the point in expanding unnecessarily. We don't want to grow too much as a company, he said. We work well as we are now, as a small team, and we want to stay like that because we are very happy, and why change? And I agree. See, the problem is that eventually greed starts to set in. And if the certain person who is at the helm of the studio ends up becoming a greedy person, well, I mean, at that point, anything's possible. I really do hope ultimately that Sandfall Interactive does stay a very small team. I don't want them to grow selfishly, because I do like the fact that they are putting out games that they're passionate about. They are working on stories that they obviously know how to write. I mean, they have some of the best writing that I've seen in video games recently. Even from an indie standpoint, a AAA standpoint, it doesn't matter. They hit it out the park. I can't keep speaking good about this game. Like, it's impossible to speak any more good than I already have. This game, if you haven't played it, you need to pick it up and play it immediately. It is that kind of a video game. And don't let the turn-based combat shy you away, because I guarantee you, most people, even if they don't like turn-based combat, are going to end up liking the combat system in this game to some extent. And then it says, of course, that doesn't mean Sandfall won't incorporate lessons learned from Expedition 33's development. Broach explained that there are mistakes we made during production the team can learn from the second time around. But the most striking thing for us, and the real reward in our hearts, is the emotional response to the characters, to the story, and how much people embrace the characters, and they help them get through tough moments in their life, Broach added. And I think that's why art exists in general, to create an emotional response and be something that moves people, and that's what we want to keep on doing. So I'll say it to you guys like this. It sounds like he's saying all the right thing. He is saying literally everything that a normal gamer is going to want to hear, right? Especially fans of Expedition 33. I think at this point, you know, you really don't have too much to worry about. However, keep these companies at an arm's length, because at any point they absolutely can change. They're only as good as their last video game. Now, in terms of their last video game, it is doing gangbusters numbers on Steam and gangbusters numbers everywhere. As I mentioned earlier in the video, it did a little over 5 million copies sold as of October of this year, with a concurrent player count on Steam of 145,063. This has a 24-hour peak of 17,807, and there is 8,801 people playing this game right now as I talk to you in this video. The estimated Steam sales are pretty damn high, anywhere between 3.5 million all the way to 4.5 million. Out of that 5 million sales, the majority of it seems to have come from PC. There are still people watching this video game over on Twitch extensively. There is a 24-hour peak of 10,147 people watching Expedition 33, with 3,293 people watching it right now. So this game has extremely long legs, and it's extremely popular for a reason, and it is heavily inspired by JRPGs. It is a love letter to that genre of RPGs, and this is where I want to finalize this conversation. Expedition 33 proved the entire Western RPG gaming industry wrong, completely wrong. It even proves some Eastern RPG companies like Square Enix, for example, completely wrong. Square Enix moved away from turn-based combat to action combat in their mainline Final Fantasy series because they flat out thought that turn-based combat was just not liked anymore. They thought that turn-based combat would not be able to sell compared to action combat, so they ended up chasing that level of combat instead of what they were known for. And to be quite honest with you, while some people have obviously garnered a love for that kind of combat in Final Fantasy, I've always been against it. I've always spoken against it, and I've always said that I would love to see a modern graphical, modern system Final Fantasy video game with turn-based combat. I just would love to see it. I really would. Now, I don't know if this is going to be a return for Square Enix, because they ended up partnering with Expedition 33. The developers went over to Square Enix studio and basically talked about their game, how they made it, what made them do the things that they did. And we don't know the outcome of that conversation, but what I do hope is that Square Enix at least had their eyes open to the possibility of making a AAA turn-based combat video game. Square Enix does have subsidiary companies that do make turn-based combat games that are essentially like, you know, HD 2D kind of games, or even like Octopath Traveler kind of a thing, but they don't really do AAA turn-based combat games anymore, and that's what I feel like needs to make a return. Now, I know Final Fantasy 17 is on the way, and we do not know whether it's a single-player game, multiplayer game, or whatever. It is most likely a single-player game, but still, we don't know what kind of combat it's going to have, but I'm going to come out and say it's most likely going to have action combat. I don't think Square Enix, even if they do see the numbers right before their eyes, and they do see everybody talking about this game, I still, for some reason, think that their stubbornness is going to carry through, and I just don't think they're going to actually make it turn-based anymore. Now, it really is a shame, because some of the most famous RPGs in history, and some of my favorite ones by far, had or did not have turn-based combat, right? Like, I loved Mass Effect. Mass Effect is considered a great RPG, and that didn't have turn-based combat. That became more action-y as time went on compared to the first game. The second game was obviously a cover shooter style combat system, and you even have the Witcher series, which again is like an action combat system that I absolutely love. But then, of course, you have Pillars of Eternity, you have Baldur's Gate, you have one of my personal favorites, Final Fantasy IX, you have Legend of Dragoon, you have the Gothic series, which is more of like an action-oriented combat system. Again, guys, all of these video games, action or not, are just from a time that the writing was so much better, the world building was so much better, and the overall gameplay was so much more rewarding. I want us to get back to that level. Indie games are carrying the scene right now. They just are. They're carrying for a lot of different genres right now. I've been playing more indie games than ever. I've been playing indie games damn near probably at a 3 to 2 ratio, or maybe even a 4 to 1 ratio. We're doing it out of 5. You know, these are just, it's not even comparable. But what I will say is that Expedition 33 and the fantastic story, the fantastic gameplay, and the overall world building, this game opened my eyes again to a genre that I thought was long forgotten, or at least long dead, which is AAA turn-based combat video games with a rich story, single player, none of this microtransaction BS, just a flat-out video game where you can unlock all kinds of stuff, explore the world, figure out secret bosses, unlock super bosses after you're done with the main story. I mean, again, it's just, there are so many fun things to do. It is unbelievable. So ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, this video is just meant to talk about how Expedition 33 truly opened my eyes, and I think a lot of people's eyes, and especially corporate's eyes, when it comes to turn-based combat games in the AAA sector. I really hope that we start to see a small change back to what ended up bringing us to the golden day of RPGs. I want turn-based combat to return. I don't think it belongs in every RPG, obviously, because as I mentioned, there's RPGs that I love that are action-oriented combat, as long as it's done right. But I just truly feel like Final Fantasy, especially, is just missing what used to make it special. The story is just so bland these days. I semi-enjoyed Final Fantasy 16, but again, it had a lot of systems in it that made it very repetitive, and that kind of turned me off a little bit. And obviously, everybody knows how I feel about the Final Fantasy 7 remakes, and I'm not even going to talk about that travesty. So overall, I really do hope that we do make a return. I would have loved to see Final Fantasy 7 Remake have a turn-based combat system, and I know if I'm in the minority, that's okay. I'll still stand my ground and say that it would have been such a badass experience to be able to see that. So we'll end up seeing what's happening, you know, with Sandfall Interactive. They are working on their next game, to my knowledge, and also working on supporting Expedition 33. But I implore you, if you have not played this game yet, consider checking this game out. It is available for Game Pass, if I'm not mistaken. So if you don't want to pay for it and you have Game Pass, you could check it out. But honestly, if it ever goes on sale, literally ever, consider picking it up, because you are most likely not going to regret your purchase. I guarantee you're going to have a lot of fun with this particular video game. So let me know in the comments down below, what do you think about all this? What do you think about the Western gaming industry from the RPG scene? Or what do you think about the Eastern RPG scene that have abandoned turn-based combat because they think action combat is the only way to go? Let me know in the comments down below whether you agree or disagree. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, do all that YouTube algorithm nonsense, and I will see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.